The alarm bells rang across every council ship in the fleet. Admiral Vextar of the Zenthari stared at the massive display screen showing thousands of red dots moving toward them. Each dot was a void swarm unit, and they were coming fast. How many ships do we have left? Vextar asked his communication officer. 312, sir. We lost 47 ships in the last attack. Vextar's forearms moved quickly over his control panel. The Zenthari were known as the best warriors in the galaxy. Their energy weapons could cut through any armor. Their shields could stop any attack. But today, nothing was working against the Void Swarm. The swarm was different from any enemy they had faced before. These were not living creatures, but machines that looked like metal bugs the size of fighter ships. They moved together like a real swarm of insects. Worse yet, they learned from every attack. When the Council forces used laser weapons, the swarm adapted and became resistant to lasers. When they used plasma cannons, the swarm learned to absorb plasma energy and use it against them. Sir, the humans are requesting permission to help, said the communication officer. Vextar made a sound that was like laughing, but not in a good way. The humans, with their old chemical weapons and metal bullets? Tell them to stay back. This is real warfare, not their primitive games. On the screen, another Council ship exploded as swarm units surrounded it. The ship's advanced shields meant nothing when the enemy had already learned how to break through them. Far away from the battle, on a quiet planet called New Busan, and Neo, old man sat in his small house reading a book about farming. His name was Hyun, and he was 70 years old. His hair was gray, and his hands had many scars from old battles. But his eyes were still sharp and alert. His communication device made a soft sound. Hyun looked at it and saw a message with special codes that he had not seen for 20 years. Only 5 people in the galaxy knew these codes. The message was short. The kids need help, one last ride? Hyun sat quietly for a long moment. Then he walked to his bedroom and moved his bed to the side. Under the bed was a metal plate in the floor. He pressed his hand against it and it opened. Inside was a black case that had not been opened for many years. The case contained his old military uniform and several communication devices. Hyun put on the uniform. It still fit, though it was a bit tight around his belly. He picked up one of the communication devices and pressed a button. Iron Squad, this is Iron 1, he said quietly. Sound off. Iron 2 here, came a woman's voice. It was Day, his old sniper. She was 68 years old and lived on a farm where she taught young people how to hunt. Iron 3, ready? Said another voice. This was Min, who was 72 and spent his days playing games with children in the park. Iron 4 checking in. Jin was 65 and fixed old machines for people who could not afford new ones. Iron 5 present. Hana was 71 and ran a small company that removed dangerous rocks from construction sites. Iron 6 here. Bo was 69 and worked as a doctor in a small town where the nearest hospital was far away. Hyun felt something warm in his chest. His old squad was still alive, and they had all answered his call. Listen up, Iron Squad, Hyun said. The Galactic Council is getting beaten badly by something called the Void Swarm. They think human weapons are too old and weak to help. What do you think about that? I think they forgot who we are, Day said with a hard voice. I think they need to remember what humans can do when we get angry, Min added. I think it's time to show them that old soldiers never really retire, Hana said, and Hyun could hear her smiling. Where do we meet? Jin asked. Spaceport 7 on New Seoul Station, Hyun told them. Bring your gear, the real gear, not the stuff we show to visitors. See you in 12 hours, Bo said. It will be good to work together again. Hyun turned off the communication device and looked around his small house. He had lived here peacefully for 15 years. He grew vegetables in his garden and taught military history to young people at the local school. It was a good life, but it was not the only life he had lived. Before retiring, Hyun had been Colonel Hyun of the Earth Defense Force. He had fought in 7 wars across 12 planets. His squad had been called Iron Squad because they never broke, no matter how hard the enemy hit them. Other soldiers had called them ghosts because they could appear anywhere on a battlefield and disappear just as quickly. The Council had records of human military history, but they did not really understand it. They saw that humans used simple weapons that fired metal bullets instead of energy beams. They saw that human ships were slower and had weaker shields than alien ships. What they did not understand was that humans had learned to win wars not with better technology, but with better thinking and more determination. Hyun packed his old equipment into a travel bag. Most of it looked like junk to modernize. His rifle was 40 years old and fired simple bullets. His armor was heavy and powered by batteries instead of energy cells. His communication gear used old radio waves instead of quantum signals. But Hyun knew something that the Council had forgotten. Sometimes the old ways worked better than the new ways. Sometimes simple was better than complicated. And sometimes, when the galaxy was in trouble, it needed soldiers who had learned their skills in the hardest school of all, real war. As Hyun left his house, he looked back one more time. He might not see it again, but that was okay. Some things were more important than a quiet retirement. The transport to New Seoul Station was full of ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. None of them recognized the quiet old man in the back seat as one of the most dangerous soldiers in human history. That was fine with Hyun. He had always preferred it when enemies underestimated him. On the Council flagship, Admiral Vextar watched another ship die on his display screen. The Void Swarm was getting closer to the core worlds. Soon, billions of innocent people would be in danger. "Sir, the humans are asking again if they can help," his communication officer reported. "Tell them no," Vextar said firmly. "Their weapons are 300 years out of date. They would just get in our way." The Admiral did not know that 6 old humans were getting ready to prove him very wrong. He did not know that Iron Squad had fought enemies that the Council could not even imagine. And he definitely did not know that sometimes the most dangerous warriors were the ones everyone thought were too old to fight. In 12 hours, everything would begin to change. 40 years ago, the planet Kepler 442 burned under an alien sun. Young Colonel Hyun crouched behind a broken wall, watching enemy forces move through the ruins of what used to be a human colony. The aliens had killed everyone: men, women, children. They thought humans were weak and easy to defeat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Iron 2, do you have the shot?" Hyun whispered into his radio. "Affirmative, Iron 1, came Day's voice. She was 28 then, the best sniper in the human military. "Target is the big one with all the shiny metals. Range is 800 meters. Iron 3, are the charges set?" "Ready to blow, boss," Hana replied. At 31, she could make bombs out of anything: old pipes, fertilizer, even cooking oil. When this goes off, they'll think the planet exploded. "Iron 4, how's our exit?" "Path is clear," Min reported. He was 32 and could make enemies so scared they would run away without firing a shot. "But we've got company coming from the north." "Iron 5, can you stop their communications?" "Already done," Jin said with satisfaction. The 35-year-old could make any machine do what he wanted. "They can't call for help even if they want to." "Iron 6, casualties." "We're all good, Iron 1, Bo answered. At 29, he was the best combat doctor in human space. "Ready when you are," Hyun smiled. His squad was perfect. Each person was an expert, but more importantly, they trusted each other completely. That trust had been earned in a dozen battles across hostile worlds. "Execute in 3, 2, 1, and now." Day's rifle cracked once. The enemy commander's head disappeared. Hana's explosives went off like thunder, collapsing the entire enemy headquarters. Min started broadcasting terrifying sounds that made the surviving enemies panic and run. Jin turned their own defense guns against them. Bo made sure every human stayed alive and ready to fight. In 10 minutes, an entire enemy army was gone. The aliens who had thought humans were weak had learned the truth too late. The local news called it the miracle of Kepler 442. Military historians called it the most perfect small unit operation in human history. But Hyun and his squad just called it Tuesday. Now, 40 years later, the same 6 people met at Spaceport 7 on New Seoul Station. They looked older and moved a bit slower, but their eyes still held the same sharp intelligence. Well, Day said as she walked up to Hyun. Her hair was silver now and she used a walking stick, but she still moved like a hunter. The gang's all here. Min arrived next, carrying a small bag and wearing a simple shirt that said, "World's Best Grandfather." He looked like any other old man, which was exactly what made him so dangerous. Jin showed up with grease on his hands from fixing someone's broken communication device. At 65, he still loved making machines work better than their designers had ever imagined. Hana came in making loud jokes and laughing with everyone she met. People saw a friendly old lady who probably made excellent cookies. They did not see one of the most creative, destructive minds in the galaxy. Bo was the last to arrive, apologizing because he had stopped to help a sick child on his way to the spaceport. He still could not walk past someone who needed medical help. "So," Hyun said when they were all together, "anyone want to tell me why we're doing this instead of sitting on our porches and complaining about young people?" "Because young people are in trouble," Day said simply. "Because we're the only ones crazy enough to fight metal bugs with bullets," Hana added with a grin. "Because someone needs to remind the galaxy that humans are not weak," Min said quietly. "Because the kids need their grandparents to save them," Jin said, patting his bag full of tools. "Because it's the right thing to do," Bo finished. Hyun nodded. These were the reasons he had hoped to hear. "All right then. Let's go find ourselves a ship." The ship they found was called the Soul's Pride, and it was almost as old as they were. It had been a military transport during the war, but now it carried cargo and passengers between human colonies. The current owner was happy to sell it to 6 old people who said they wanted to take a reunion cruise. If he had known who these old people really were, he might have asked for more money. The ship's AI was named Nuri, and she had been sleeping for many years. When the 6 veterans came aboard, she automatically scanned their biometrics. What she found made her wake up very quickly. "Colonel Hyun?" Nuri's voice came from the speakers, sounding surprised. "Is that really you?" "Hello, Nuri," Hyun said with a smile. "We need to take a little trip." "Sir, my records show that Iron Squad was disbanded 20 years ago. We're just getting back together for old time's sake," Day said innocently. Nuri was quiet for a moment. Then hidden panels opened all over the ship, revealing sealed weapon caches that had been waiting for decades. "In that case, sir, all weapons. Systems are now online. Where are we going?" "To the Void Swarm Battle Zone," Hyun told her. "Sir, that area is restricted. The Council has declared it too dangerous for civilian ships." "Nuri," Hyun said gently, "do we look like civilians to you?" Another pause. "No, sir. You look like Iron Squad, preparing for departure immediately." As the Soul's Pride lifted off from the space station, the 6 old soldiers settled into the ship's common room. They had 12 hours of travel ahead of them, and they spent the time doing what soldiers always do. They talked. Day told them about her farm and the young hunters she taught. "Kids today don't understand patience," she said. "They want to make the shot as soon as they see the target. I tell them, wait, watch, breathe, the right moment will come." Hana talked about her demolition company and the careful work of removing dangerous explosives from old war zones. "People think explosives are about making big noise," she explained. "But real expertise is knowing exactly how much force to use, and exactly where to put it." Min described his work with children in the park. "Young people today are so worried about everything," he said. "I teach them games that help them think clearly when they're scared. Fear is normal, but panic will get you killed." Jin showed them pictures of the old machines he repaired. "Everyone wants the newest technology," he said. "But sometimes old tech is better because it's simple and reliable. A machine that works is better than a machine that's fancy but breaks down." Bo talked about his patients in the small town where he worked. "Modern medicine is amazing," he said. "But sometimes you can't get to a hospital, and you have to make do with what you have. The most important thing is staying calm and focused." Hyun listened to all of them and felt proud. His squad had spent their retirement years helping people and sharing their knowledge. They had earned their peaceful lives. But now the galaxy needed them again, and they had answered the call without hesitation. Do you think we're too old for this? Bo asked as they got closer to the battle zone. Probably, Hyun admitted, but being too old never stopped us before. Through the ship's windows, they could see the flashes of weapons fire in the distance. The Galactic Council was still fighting the Void Swarm, and they were still losing. Nuri, Hyun said, send a message to the Council fleet. Tell them Iron Squad is here and ready to help. Sir, I should warn you that they have already refused human assistance several times. Send it anyway, Hyun said with a smile that his old squad remembered well. It was the smile he always had right before he did something that seemed impossible. The reply came back quickly. Elderly humans, withdraw immediately. Your primitive weapons are useless here. This is beyond your capabilities. Iron Squad looked at each other and started laughing. It was the same laugh they had shared 40 years ago on Kepler 442, right before they proved that everyone who underestimated them was making a very big mistake. Some things never change, Day said, checking her old rifle. Time to remind them who we are, Hyun replied, and his squad prepared for battle one more time. The crystalline collective ship, Harmony of Light, died in silence. One moment it was firing its most powerful energy weapons at the Void Swarm. The next moment, the swarm units had absorbed the energy and turned it back on the ship. Where the magnificent crystal vessel had been, now there was only floating debris and fading light. Admiral Vextar watched from his command ship as another ally was destroyed. The crystalline collective had the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy. Their technology was thousands of years ahead of human science, but against the Void Swarm it meant nothing. That's the third crystalline ship we've lost in an hour, his tactical officer reported. The young Xanthari's voice shook with fear. How many council ships do we have left? Vextar asked, though he dreaded the answer. 193, sir. We've lost over a third of our fleet. The Void Swarm was unlike any enemy the Galactic Council had ever faced. Each unit was a machine about the size of a fighter craft, but they moved together with perfect coordination. They looked like metal insects with wings that gleamed in the starlight and eyes that glowed red with artificial intelligence. But their most terrifying ability was adaptation. The first time the Council used laser weapons, the swarm units were destroyed easily. The second time they took some damage, but survived. By the third attack, laser weapons could not hurt them at all. They had learned, adapted, and become immune. Same thing happened with plasma cannons, particle beams, gravitational weapons, and every other advanced technology the Council possessed. The swarm learned from each attack and became stronger. Sir, the swarm is moving toward the core systems, the navigation officer announced. At their current speed, they'll reach New Terra in 6 days. New Terra was home to 12 billion civilians. If the swarm reached them, it would be the greatest disaster in galactic history. Sir, the communication officer said hesitantly, we are receiving another message from human forces. They're asking for permission to engage the enemy. Vextar made an angry sound. The humans had been asking to help for hours, and each time he had told them no. Their weapons were centuries out of date. Their ships were slow and poorly armed, compared to Council vessels. What could they possibly do against an enemy that had defeated the galaxy's most advanced military forces? Tell them again, Vextar ordered. Stay back. This is not their kind of warfare. But even as he said it, Vextar felt a tiny doubt in his mind. The humans had surprised the galaxy before. During the expansion wars, they had defeated enemies that should have been too strong for them. But that was different. Those had been normal enemies with normal weapons. The Void Swarm was something completely new. On the Soul's Pride, Iron Squad listened to the Admiral's rejection with grim amusement. Same old Council, Min said, shaking his head. They think they know everything. Let me try talking to them, Hana suggested. I bet I can change their minds. No, Hyun said firmly. We don't have time to argue with them. Nuri, show me the tactical situation. The ship's main screen displayed the battle zone. Hundreds of red dots representing swarm units moved in complex patterns around the remaining Council ships. The alien formations were perfect, mathematical, and completely predictable to any machine intelligence. But to human eyes trained in irregular warfare, they showed something else entirely. They're hurting the council forces, Day observed. Look at the movement pattern. They're not trying to destroy the fleet quickly. They're pushing them toward that asteroid field. It's a trap, Jin agreed. Once the council ships are in that field, the swarm can surround them completely. And the council can't see it because they're thinking like machines, Bo added. They're analyzing each swarm unit individually instead of seeing the bigger picture. Hyun studied the display for another moment. 40 years of combat experience told him exactly what was happening. The Void Swarm was not just a collection of intelligent machines. It was one giant intelligence controlling thousands of individual units. It thought like a computer, logical, predictable, efficient. That was going to be its weakness. Nuri, Hyun said, take us in, but stay away from the main battle. I want to get close to a small group of swarm units. Sir, the Council has ordered all civilian ships to maintain a safe distance. We're not civilians, Day said, checking her rifle one more time. We're Iron Squad, and Iron Squad doesn't take orders from people who don't know what they're doing, Hana added with a dangerous smile. The Soul's Pride moved toward the edge of the battle zone. To any observer, it looked like an old cargo ship that had gotten lost. The Void Swarm units paid no attention to it. Their sensors were designed to detect advanced military technology, not an antique human transport. There, Hyun pointed at the screen. 5 swarm units, separated from the main group. That's our target. What's the plan? Min asked. Simple, Hyun replied. We're going to hit them with weapons they've never seen before. On the Council flagship, alarms started blaring. Sir, we have a problem, the sensor operator announced. One of the human ships is moving toward the enemy. Admiral Vextar looked at his display and saw a small dot moving steadily toward a group of swarm units. Are they insane? Contact them immediately. Sir, they're not responding to our communications. Then send a patrol ship to intercept them. Sir, all our patrol ships are engaged with the enemy. We don't have any units to spare. Vextar watched helplessly as the human ship moved closer to certain destruction. He had seen dozens of Council ships die today, each one destroyed by weapons, more advanced than anything humans possessed. What chance did one old transport have? On the Soul's Pride, Iron Squad was getting ready for battle. They put on their old combat armor, heavy, bulky suits that ran on battery power instead of fusion cells. Their weapons were equally ancient, rifles that fired metal bullets, explosives that used chemical charges, and communication gear that relied on simple radio waves. To any modern observer, they looked like museum pieces. But Hyun knew that sometimes, old technology had advantages that new technology had forgotten. Remember, he told his squad, these things learn from energy signatures and advanced technology. But they've never encountered anything like our gear. What if they adapt to bullets too? Bo asked. Then we'll improvise, Hyun said with confidence. That's what humans do best. The Soul's Pride shuddered as swarm units detected it and began moving to intercept. Through the windows, Iron Squad could see the enemy up close for the first time. The machines were beautiful in a terrible way, like deadly insects made of polished metal and glowing lights. Launching in 30 seconds, Nuri announced. Good luck, Iron Squad. We don't need luck, Day said, chambering around in her rifle. We have something better. What's that? Jin asked. Experience, Hyun replied, and the element of surprise. The launch bay doors opened, and 6 elderly humans in ancient combat suits dropped into space. To the Galactic Council, they looked like sacrificial victims flying toward certain death. To the Void Swarm, they barely registered as a threat. Both groups were about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving. Admiral Vexitar stared at his display in disbelief. Did those humans just jump out of their ship? Yes, sir. Our sensors show 6 individual life signs approaching the swarm units. This is madness, Vextar whispered. They're going to die, and it will accomplish nothing. But deep down, something made him keep watching. The humans had surprised the galaxy before. Maybe, just maybe, they were about to do it again. The first Void Swarm unit never saw the bullet coming. Day floated in space, her ancient rifle steady against her shoulder. She had been making this shot for 40 years, and age had not slowed her down. She breathed out slowly, calculated wind, resistance in her head, and squeezed the trigger. The rifle made a loud crack that echoed strangely in the vacuum of space. A simple metal bullet, powered by nothing more than chemical explosives, flew across the darkness at incredible speed. The swarm unit's sensors detected the projectile, but they could not understand what it was. Their programming was designed to handle energy weapons, lasers, plasma bolts, particle beams. They had adaptive shields that could learn to stop any kind of energy attack, but a chunk of metal moving at high speed was not an energy attack. It was just physics. The bullet punched through the swarm unit's outer shell like it was made of paper. It tore through delicate electronics, shattered control circuits, and came out the other side. The machine spun out of control and went dark. "Target down," Day reported calmly. "One shot, one kill, just like old times." The other 4 swarm units immediately turned toward the humans, their red eyes glowing brighter with alarm. But before they could attack, Hana's explosives went off. She had planted them while the swarm was focused on Day. Simple chemical bombs, the kind that had been used on Earth centuries ago. No advanced technology, no energy signatures, just old-fashioned explosive powder wrapped in metal cases. The blast tore through 2 swarm units at once. Their adaptive armor was designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks, but it could not handle the raw kinetic force of an explosion. Metal fragments from the bombs shredded their delicate internal systems. Boom! Hana laughed over the radio. "Still got it." The remaining 2 swarm units tried to coordinate their response, but their communication systems were being jammed. Not by advanced cyber warfare or quantum interference, but by Jin playing loud music on their frequencies. "Sorry about this," Jin said cheerfully as he broadcast an old human song at maximum volume. "But you guys really need to learn to appreciate classical rock music." The swarm unit's collective intelligence network was disrupted by the chaos of random sound. They were used to clean, organized data streams. The mixture of guitar solos, drum beats, and human voices singing about love and rebellion made their processing systems stutter and lag. While they were confused, Min moved in with his psychological warfare tactics. He broadcast recordings of human battle cries, war chants, and victory songs. To the logical minds of the swarm, these sounds made no sense. Why would warriors waste energy making noise? Why would they celebrate before the battle was over? The answer was simple: because they were human, and humans did not think like machines. Bo kept everyone healthy and coordinated while Hyun directed the attack with 40 years of tactical experience. He could see patterns that the swarm's artificial intelligence could not predict. The way humans moved in battle, the way they adapted to changing situations, the way they used emotion and instinct along with logic and planning. "Iron 2, can you get the one on the left?" Hyun asked. "Already lining up the shot," Day replied. Her second bullet found its target just as accurately as the first. Another swarm unit died, its advanced technology useless against a simple projectile weapon. The last swarm unit tried to retreat, but it was too late. Hana had planted explosives in its escape route. Jin had hacked its navigation system using tools that were older than some planets. Min had confused its targeting computers with recordings of human laughter. "Iron 6, you're up," Hyun said. Bo moved forward with his medical kit, which contained not just healing supplies but also a collection of tools for disabling enemy equipment. He reached the final swarm unit and carefully removed a panel from its side. "Let's see what makes you tick," he said gently, the same tone he used when treating scared patients. His hands worked quickly and efficiently, disconnecting key components until the machine stopped moving. "Target secured," Bo reported. "We'll want to study this one." In less than 5 minutes, 6 elderly humans had destroyed 5 void swarm units. They had used weapons that were centuries out of date, tactics that military academies no longer taught, and equipment that most people considered junk. And it had worked perfectly. On the Council flagship, Admiral Vextar stared at his sensor readings in complete shock. The display showed the impossible. 5 swarm units destroyed, 1 captured, and 6 human life signs still active and healthy. Are our sensors malfunctioning? he asked his technical officer. No, sir. I've run 3 diagnostics. The readings are correct. But that's impossible. Those units destroyed our most advanced warships. Sir, the communication officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human team. Put it through, Vextar ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. Hyun's calm voice filled the bridge. Council Control, this is Iron Squad. First engagement complete. 5 enemy units destroyed, 1 captured for study. No human casualties. Ready for target assignment. The bridge fell completely silent. Every council officer stared at the communication panel as if it might explode. Finally, Vextar found his voice. How did you do that? We used bullets, sir. Day's voice answered with amusement, clearly audible. Turns out they work pretty well against targets that aren't expecting them. And explosives, Hana added cheerfully. Good old-fashioned boom-boom. Very effective against fancy armor that's designed for fancy weapons. Plus some music and psychological warfare, Jin said. These machines don't handle chaos very well. They like everything neat and organized. The important thing, Hyun's voice continued, is that we've identified their weakness. They adapt to energy weapons and advanced technology, but they've never encountered primitive human military tactics. Vextar's mind raced. Could it really be that simple? Had the galaxy's most advanced military forces been defeated by an enemy that could be stopped with ancient weapons and old-fashioned strategy? Sir, his tactical officer whispered, if the humans are right, we might have a chance. But our weapons are all energy-based, the weapons officer protested. We don't have chemical projectile weapons. Sir, came Jin's voice over the radio. That's okay. We brought enough for everyone. Through the viewports of the council ships, they could see the Soul's Pride opening its cargo bays. Inside were crates and crates of human military equipment. Rifles, ammunition, explosives, and armor. All of it was old, simple, and completely obsolete by galactic standards. All of it was exactly what they needed. This is Iron One to all council forces, Hyun announced. We're uploading tactical data on swarm weaknesses and recommended engagement protocols. We suggest you consider a joint operation using combined human and council tactics. Admiral Vextar looked around his bridge at officers who represented some of the most advanced military minds in the galaxy. They all looked back at him with the same expression of amazement and hope. Iron Squad, he said formally. This is Admiral Vextar. I apologize for dismissing your offer to help. What do you need from us? Just follow our lead, Admiral, Hyun replied. And remember, sometimes the old ways work best. As word spread through the council fleet that the impossible had happened, something began to change. Hope returned to voices that had been filled with despair. Officers started planning attacks instead of retreats. And for the first time since the battle began, the Galactic Council started to believe they might actually win. All because 6 old humans had proven that sometimes the most advanced technology in the galaxy was no match for experience, determination, and a really good rifle. News traveled fast through human space. The message was simple. Iron Squad is fighting. The old soldiers need help. On colonies across dozens of star systems, elderly humans heard the call. They put down their gardening tools, closed their shops, kissed their grandchildren goodbye, and went to find weapons they had not touched in decades. Soon was 74 and had been running a small restaurant on New Jeju for 15 years. When she heard the news, she closed the restaurant and went to her basement. Hidden behind bags of rice and cooking oil was a case containing her old sniper rifle and combat armor. Yun was 68 and taught children how to read on a farming colony. He had seemed like the gentlest man alive, helping kids with their homework and telling them stories about old Earth. But before becoming a teacher, he had been Lieutenant Yun of the Marine Assault Corps, and his specialty had been breaking through. Enemy defenses key was 72 and spent his days fixing broken vehicles in a small town. People brought him their problems because he could make anything work, no matter how old or damaged it was. What they did not know was that during the war, he had been the engineer who designed many of the weapons Iron Squad had used. Ray was 69 and ran a small medical clinic on the frontier. She was known for her gentle hands and kind words, always helping anyone who needed care. But she had also been a combat medic during the worst battles of the expansion wars, keeping soldiers alive under impossible conditions. Within hours, transport ships began arriving at the battle zone. They were old cargo vessels, passenger liners, and private spacecraft. None of them looked military. But when they opened their cargo bays, out came the most experienced soldiers in human history. They brought weapons that museums would have loved to display, rifles that fired solid bullets, rocket launchers that used chemical propellants, and armor that was powered by simple batteries. To the Council forces, it looked like an invasion of antiques. To the Void Swarm, it was the beginning of their worst nightmare. Admiral Vextar watched from his flagship as more than 300 elderly humans joined Iron Squad in space. Each one moved with the careful precision of someone who had spent years learning how to stay alive in combat. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human reinforcements are requesting permission to engage the enemy." "Granted," Vextar said immediately. He had learned to trust human judgment. "Tell them they have complete tactical freedom." "Sir, should we coordinate our attacks with theirs?" Vextar thought about it for a moment. "No. Let them work the way they know how. We'll provide support where they ask for it." The Admiral was learning something that military leaders throughout history had discovered. Sometimes the best thing to do was get out of the way and let experts work. Iron Squad coordinated the new arrivals with the efficiency of people who had been doing this job for decades. Hyun divided them into teams based on their specialties. Snipers like Soon went to positions where they could provide long-range support. Engineers like Kai began analyzing captured swarm technology. Assault specialists like Yun prepared for close combat operations. But the most important thing they brought was knowledge. These veterans had fought in wars that the younger generation had only read about. They knew tricks and tactics that were not taught in modern military academies. "Listen up," Yun broadcast to all human forces. "The swarm learns from energy weapons and advanced tech, but they're completely helpless against kinetic weapons and old-school tactics. Here's what we're going to do." The plan was beautifully simple. Human snipers would pick off isolated swarm units with bullet weapons. Demolition experts would use chemical explosives to break up large formations. Engineers would jam swarm communications with old-fashioned radio interference. Assault teams would board damaged swarm vessels and disable them from the inside. Most importantly, they would fight like humans, unpredictably, emotionally, with instinct and experience guiding their actions. The swarm's artificial intelligence was designed to counter logical, organized military tactics. It had no way to predict what a group of angry old humans would do when their families were threatened. The first coordinated attack began at 1400 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Soon lined up her shot from 2 kilometers away, using calculations she had memorized 50 years ago. Her bullet found a swarm command unit and destroyed its central processor. Immediately, 20 swarm units that had been perfectly coordinated began moving randomly. Without their command unit, they could not share information or plan attacks. Yun led his assault team straight into the confusion. They used jetpacks that ran on chemical fuel, simple, reliable, and impossible for the swarm to predict. While the enemy units tried to figure out what was happening, the human veterans landed on their hulls and began cutting through armor with tools that had not changed in centuries. Key had studied the captured swarm unit and found something interesting. "Their power systems are incredibly advanced," he reported to Hyun, "but they're also incredibly delicate. Hit them in the right spot with something as simple as a hammer, and the whole unit shuts down." "Show us where to hit," Hyun ordered. Within minutes, every human soldier knew exactly where to aim. Bullets, explosives, and even simple tools could disable swarm units if they hit the right targets. The battle began to turn. For hours, the Void Swarm had been unstoppable, adapting to every weapon the Council used against them. But now they faced an enemy they could not understand or predict. When swarm units tried to learn from human bullet weapons, the humans switched to explosives. When they adapted to explosives, the humans used jamming equipment. When they tried to counter the jamming, the humans started using psychological warfare. Ray and her medical teams kept every human fighter healthy and ready for battle. But more than that, they provided the emotional support that made human tactics possible. When young council officers panicked during the fighting, the human medics calmed them down with voices that had comforted soldiers through dozens of wars. "It's okay," Ray told a terrified Xanthari pilot whose ship had been damaged. "We've seen worse than this, just stay calm and follow the plan." The pilot looked at the elderly human woman who was treating his injuries with steady hands. "How can you be so calm? We're fighting for our lives." "Son," Ray said gently, "we've been fighting for our lives since before you were born. This is just another day at the office for us." As the battle continued, something remarkable happened. The council forces began adopting human tactics. Xanthari warriors started using kinetic weapons alongside their energy guns. Crystalline collective ships began jamming swarm communications with chaotic noise patterns. Even the proud Altarian fleet started using unpredictable attack patterns instead of their traditional precise formations. The Void Swarm's collective intelligence began to struggle. It was designed to face organized, logical enemies who used advanced technology in predictable ways. But humans fought like chaos itself. Every decision based on instinct, every attack impossible to predict, every strategy changing from moment to moment. "Sir," the council tactical officer reported to Admiral Vextar, "the swarm is retreating." Vextar could hardly believe it. "Retreating? Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. They're pulling back from all sectors. It looks like they're trying to regroup." On the Soul's Pride, Iron Squad monitored the battle with satisfaction. They had proven their point. Sometimes old methods worked better than new ones. "Think they've learned their lesson?" Day asked, cleaning her rifle. "The swarm or the council?" Hana replied with a grin. "Both," Hyun said. "But this isn't over yet. The swarm is regrouping, which means they're going to try something new." Jin looked up from his analysis of captured swarm technology. "I found something interesting. These units are all connected to a central intelligence, like a hive mind. If we could find the source, we could shut down the entire swarm." Bo finished. Hyun nodded slowly. It made sense. The individual units were dangerous, but they were just tools. The real enemy was whatever was controlling them. "How do we find it?" Min asked. "The same way we've found everything else," Hyun said with a smile that his old squad knew well. "We follow the trail and trust our instincts." Outside the ship's windows, they could see the Void Swarm reorganizing in the distance. The enemy was adapting again, but this time the humans were ready. They had something the swarm could never understand or predict, the wisdom that came from a lifetime of fighting impossible battles and finding ways to win. The final confrontation was coming, and Iron Squad was ready for it. Jin found it buried deep in the captured swarm unit's memory banks, a signal that pulsed like a heartbeat, connecting every machine in the enemy fleet to something much larger. "There," he said, pointing at the display screen. "That's our target, the Swarm Queen." The object on the screen was massive, 10 times larger than any Council battleship. It hung in space like a metal mountain, its surface covered with thousands of antenna arrays and communication towers. This was the brain that controlled every swarm unit, the intelligence that had nearly defeated the entire Galactic Council. "How do we get to it?" Hyun asked, studying the tactical display. "Very carefully," Jin replied. "It's protected by at least 5,000 swarm units, and they're arranged in perfect defensive formations." Day looked at the display and shook her head. "Perfect formations are predictable formations. We can work with that." "What's the plan?" Bo asked. Hyun was quiet for a long moment, thinking. 40 years of military experience told him that this would be the most dangerous mission they had ever attempted. The odds were terrible, and they might not all come back. But sometimes impossible missions were the only ones worth doing. "We go, in fast and hard," he said finally. "One team creates a distraction to draw off the defenders. The other team gets to the Queen and plants Hana's special explosives." "What kind of distraction?" Min asked. "The biggest, loudest, most chaotic attack we can manage," Hyun replied. "We make so much noise that the Queen has to send units to stop us." Hana grinned. "I like this plan already." They divided into 2 teams. Hyun, Dae, Min, and Jin would create the distraction. Hana and Bo would go after the queen. It was not the way they usually worked. Iron Squad had always fought together. But this mission required sacrifice. You sure about this? Dae asked Hana as they prepared to separate. Someone has to do it, Hana said simply. Might as well be me. Besides, I've been saving my best explosives for something special. The assault began at dawn, Galactic time. Hyun's team launched from the Soul's Pride in a small attack craft, flying straight toward the heaviest concentration of swarm units. They fired every weapon they had, bullets, rockets, and even old-fashioned flares that filled space with bright, chaotic light. To the swarm's orderly intelligence, the attack looked insane. 4 elderly humans in an antique spacecraft were charging directly at 5,000 defenders. It made no tactical sense. That was exactly the point. The swarm units responded the only way they knew how, with perfect coordination and overwhelming force. Hundreds of machines turned away from defending the queen to deal with what looked like a suicidal human attack. While the distraction drew the defenders away, Hana and Bo approached the queen from the opposite direction. They flew in a tiny maintenance pod that barely registered on enemy sensors. To the swarm, they looked like floating debris. Just like old times, Bo said as they got closer to the massive enemy ship. Better than old times, Hana replied, checking her explosives one more time. This time we're saving the entire galaxy. Getting inside the queen was easier than expected. The swarm's intelligence was focused on external threats, not on 2 old humans in a tiny spacecraft. They docked with a maintenance port and cut their way through the hull using tools that were older than some civilizations. Inside the queen, they found corridors filled with humming machinery and blinking lights. Everything was clean, organized, and completely logical. It was the perfect environment for artificial intelligence. It was also the worst possible place for creative thinking. The central processor should be at the core, Bo said, reading Jin's notes on swarm technology. They moved through the corridors like ghosts, using skills learned in dozens of battles. Every step was careful and quiet. Every turn was checked for guards. Every shadow was a potential hiding place, but they encountered no resistance. The queen's intelligence was so focused on the battle outside that it did not notice 2 intruders moving through its body. Meanwhile, Hyun's team was putting on the performance of their lives. They flew their small craft in impossible patterns, fired weapons in every direction, and broadcast human war songs at maximum volume. To any logical observer, they looked completely crazy. The swarm units chased them through asteroid fields and around disabled ships, trying to destroy what they thought was just another group of irrational humans. They did not realize that every move was carefully planned, every seemingly random turn designed to draw more defenders away from the queen. How are we doing on time? Hyun asked Jin. Hana and Bo should be at the core by now, Jin replied, dodging laser fire from 3 swarm units. Then let's give them a few more minutes, Hyun said, turning their ship toward an even larger group of enemies. At the queen's core, Hana and Bo found what they were looking for, a massive computer system that pulsed with electronic life. This was the brain that controlled millions of swarm units across the galaxy. This was the intelligence that had nearly brought down galactic civilization. It's beautiful in a terrible way, Bo said, looking at the complex machinery. It'll be even more beautiful when it's in a million pieces, Hana replied, setting her explosives with the skill of someone who had been doing this job for 50 years. But as she worked, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The queen had finally detected the intruders. We've got company coming, Bo warned, hearing footsteps in the corridors outside. Almost done, Hana said, making final adjustments to the charges. These will take out the entire core, but the timer is only 60 seconds. We won't make it out in time. Bo looked at her with understanding. They had both known this might happen. Sometimes heroes had to make the ultimate sacrifice. I'll stay. With you, he offered. No, Hana said firmly. You're needed out there. The galaxy is going to need good doctors after this war is over. Hana, that's an order, soldier, she said. And Bo heard the authority in her voice that had kept Iron Squad alive through 100 battles. Get out of here and make sure our sacrifice means something. Bo hesitated for one more moment, then hugged his old friend goodbye. It's been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, Hana replied. Now go. Bo ran for the escape pod while Hana activated the timer. 60 seconds until the Queen died. 60 seconds to save the galaxy. The swarm units that found her could not understand what they were seeing. An elderly human woman sitting calmly next to enough explosives to destroy their entire command center, humming an old song and smiling. You boys are too late, she told them cheerfully. In 30 seconds this whole place is going to light up like the 4th of July. The machines tried to disarm the explosives, but Hana had been making bombs longer than they had existed. Every wire they cut activated a backup detonator. Every circuit they tried to interrupt had 3 redundant systems. 20 seconds, Hana announced. You might want to say goodbye to each other. Outside the Queen, Bo's escape pod raced away from the massive ship. Behind him, he could see Hyun's team still drawing off defenders, still buying precious seconds for the mission to succeed. 10 seconds, Hana's voice came over the radio. Tell the kids I love them. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The Queen, the brain that had controlled the entire void swarm, vanished in a ball of fire and expanding gas. Across the galaxy, millions of swarm units suddenly stopped moving as their connection to Central Intelligence was severed. In the aftermath, the surviving Council ships found themselves surrounded by drifting enemy, machines that no longer functioned. The great threat that had nearly destroyed galactic civilization was ended by one old woman with conventional explosives and the courage to use them. Admiral Vexitar stood on his bridge in respectful silence. Around him, officers from a dozen different species bowed their heads in honor of a human grandmother who had saved them all. Iron Squad, he said over the communication system. This is Admiral Vexitar. On behalf of the Galactic Council and every free being in the galaxy, I thank you for your service. Hyun's voice came back, tired but proud. Just doing our job, Admiral. That's what soldiers do. Later, as the surviving members of Iron Squad returned to the Soul's Pride, they held a simple ceremony for their fallen friend. No grand speeches, no formal honors, just 5 old soldiers saying goodbye to a 6th. She went out the way she wanted, Day said quietly. Saving people and making a really big explosion, Jin added with a sad smile. The kids will remember her, Bo said. The whole galaxy will remember all of us. As it should, Hyun replied. We may be old, but we're not done yet. There's still work to do. In the weeks that followed, the Galactic Council established the Iron Protocol, a permanent advisory position for human military veterans. Never again would the galaxy's leaders dismiss the value of experience and unconventional thinking. Young officers came to study at the Human Military Academy where Hyun returned to teaching. They learned about tactics that were not in any textbook, strategies that could not be programmed into computers, and the kind of wisdom that could only come from surviving real battles. The secret, Hyun told them, is not having better weapons or newer technology. The secret is understanding that every situation is different, and sometimes the oldest solutions work best. The memorial wall at the academy gained a new name. Hana, who gave her life so that billions of others could live.